They name themselves the Resistance. Their leadership says they are involved in that. They constantly deride anything that is being done by this administration. They march in the streets. They hold up the head of the president in effigy in what they thought was a comic joke. They dress up the lead character in Julius Caesar as a Donald Trump look-alike, and then they stab him in Central Park. Did they not think that this was going to come to what happened yesterday? Were they that oblivious to it? Were they that insane that they didn't think what was going to happen? We're a country of 320 million people, and hopefully the people in this room are all kind of attached. There are some of those 320 million people who are a little bit detached. And somebody is going to always take it to the extreme. And we saw what happened, and now we have the majority whip of the U.S. Congress lying in a hospital. I won't say he's fighting for his life. Thank God he appears to be improving. But this is based on their actions. Now they think that they are trying to make moral equivalency, as the New York Times reminds us that in 2011, a Democratic congressperson was shot, and then they want to blame it on something Sarah Palin had on her website. Had nothing to do with anything. Most of the people in here have been looked at our political situation for a long time. Has anybody ever seen the likes of the United States like what is going on now? This is out of control. This is uncalled for. This is ridiculous. And they've got to put a stop to it. Now, I would like to, it was just an opening statement I felt I had to make after what happened yesterday. It was a very emotional day for me, and I imagine it's a very emotional day for you. I'd like to go on to what I was prepared to speak about this evening. And first, I would like to have some bad news. I had invited Congresswoman Waters to join us tonight, and she had agreed to, but unfortunately she had a last-minute event, so she can't join us. But she does send her regards, Arthur, and she looks forward to seeing you again in the future.
For longer than 10 minutes, I hope.
When you give speeches, you're usually supposed to begin with either a joke or a
Come on, Valerie.
pithy quote from someone. And I'm not really a joke teller. I tell stories. So I want to tell you a story. A lot of you know, Arthur told you, I'm a CPA. I do taxes. So month of April is a very busy month for me. And April 3rd was a very big day for me this year. Why? It wasn't just the fact that I was getting close to the end of tax season. It was Dodger opening day. And if you're a client of mine, it doesn't matter. You haven't got your taxes done? I'm not missing opening day for you. I'll get your work done, but that's not my problem. I am not going to miss opening day. Now, this was even a bigger day because of the fact that that night was the national championship of the college basketball. So I hardly have any time to work. I get out of my house to try and get to my office. I start driving down the street. I got a flat tire.
Oh.
I live not too far from Adjust Tires. I was able to hobble over there. My car doesn't have a spare. I was able to hobble over there, and the people at Just Tires are pretty good people. they do a good job. And I was pressuring them, to say the least. I wanted to get in, get out, get my tires put on. I replaced 2, not 1. And I was kind of pushing the people. In the bay, the woman who was working the counter. So I'm kind of hovering over the lady at the counter while I'm kind of, let's get this thing done. I got to get going. I got to get to the office because I got to leave at 11:30 to get to Dodger Stadium because I don't want to miss the first pitch and all the preceding ceremonies that happened before the first pitch. So while I'm hovering over the counter, she gets a telephone call. And the person on the other end of the phone says to her, "Do you sell and install tires?" Now, I'm already beside myself with hearing this. Now, she has to act like a responsible employee. Not like a snarky Jewish guy like me who would have just made some sarcastic comment to her. She couldn't. So the only thing she could say to her is, "Well, ma'am, the name of our company is Just Tires." So that is the kind of thinking that's going on in America today, but that's not the worst of it. If you're worried about our country, here's something to worry you a little bit more. Now, how many of you don't read the Wall Street Journal every day? Raise your hands. Do not read the Wall Street Journal every day. What are you thinking? There's nothing more important for you to read than the last 3 pages of the first section of the Wall Street Journal. If you want to understand what's going on in the country, you want to be educated about what's going on in this country, the last 3 pages of the first section of the Wall Street Journal will educate you better than anything else you're going to read on the internet, anything you're going to read anywhere. And the Wall Street Journal does something. They don't do it every day. Remember, this is one of the true premier editorial pages in the country, the other being your very favorite, the New York Times. But they sometimes put on something on their editorial page that they find from another publication that they think is worthy enough to reprint. So if they're reprinting it and they call it notable and quotable, you know it's got to be pretty good. So I pulled this thing off, and I want to tell you that you might have heard about this because a couple weeks back, my wife and I were having dinner with Dennis Prager and his wife. And don't mean to be dropping names, I am. But I tell Dennis this, he hadn't known about it. And he's immediately on his phone. He just thought he was beside himself. So I'm listening to his radio show the next day, and this is what he's talking about. And he does it in the first hour. Then he's talking about it in the second hour. Then I see him the following week on Tucker Carlson, and he's talking about this too. This is what he was talking about. Harvard libraries will no longer charge 50 cents per day fines on overdue books. The change, one of several, detailed in a post by the Harvard Library System website, went into effect on April 1st. The goal of these changes are to improve the student experience and embrace a time Harvard approach for one Harvard approach for borrowing material across Harvard Library, wrote Stephen Beardsley, Harvard's Associate Director for Access Service Administration of Operations and Special Projects, in an email. We have witnessed firsthand the stress that overdue fines can cause for our students, Beardsley said. Now this
Just one second.
We're talking about Harvard here, people. We're talking about
just keep recording.
supposedly the creme de la creme of our society. And we're talking about the fact that they are so put off.
Leftist activists here trying to disrupt the meeting.
Yeah, we got.
People leave.
You
You're not invited.
These are stolen land. We are on stolen land.
We rented this room. You're not invited. Get out.
Give us our land back. We want our land back.
Sorry, guys.
Racist, go home!
Stolen land.
Don't mind her. This is a private room. Get out. Bye-bye. Get alive.
It's okay. Don't put your hands on people.
That's fine. No. Just stop. No. Have a seat, everybody. Have a seat. Thank you.
Well, that was good.
Was it something I said? I'm just warming up, folks. I don't know why they left.
They're really excited. They knew you were going to be here, so don't worry about it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the first time we've had a couple of punks try to start something. And the first few we threw out, and they were warned that the police would come next time. So don't worry. We've already taken care of this. Remember, I play this chess game 5 moves ahead. They don't play it at all.
All right.
So let's just get to keep going. Thank you.
But they wanted to intimidate, you know.
That's enough. We're going to focus on this now. Thank you.
If you were worried about our country before, reading this notable and quotable really knocked my socks off about how concerned we should be about the future of our country. As you know, I'm a CPA, so after tax season every year, I go on vacation. And this year, my wife and I almost always travel by ourselves. And this year we did something a little bit different. We participated in a new program from the Trump administration. The name of the program is Take a Liberal to India. Now, this liberal happened to be my aunt. She married my mother's much younger brother. They were married for 35 years, divorced, but she wanted to go to India. Her new husband didn't. We thought that was fine. We don't like him. We took her. She met us. And a lot of you, how many of you ever had to interact with a real, true blood liberal? Well, you have not dealt with a liberal like this. This is a 100% purebred liberal. She's a New York Jewish person who graduated from Smith College. Now, I want to be fair because we had a wonderful trip with her. I don't bring up politics with people. And I'm going to be honest with you why I don't. A few of you know me. I'm kind of an expert on this kind of stuff. I know my wife likes to tell her liberal friends, don't try and get in an argument with my husband. He knows your arguments better than you know your arguments. And I'm going to stop and digress here for a second. I'm going to say to you something I've always encouraged Republicans to do. read the left. I read more stuff from the left than I do from the right. Do not live in an echo chamber. They live in an echo chamber. You should not live in an echo chamber. You should know what they're thinking, know how they came to conclusions, question those. I'm not saying you should agree with them, but at least be aware of what they are saying. And then you can't effectively argue with them about what the points are of public policy if you don't know where they're coming from and where their supposed intellectual leaders are coming from. You need to do that. So when I go anywhere, I never, unless somebody addresses me directly, I don't talk about politics. I just don't bring it up. And I didn't bring up politics at all, particularly new. She's a very liberal individual. My wife is a Republican. I'm a Republican. And so wanted to have peace on the trip. The thing is, though, as much as we did, they can't help themselves. That's the fascinating thing, they can't help themselves. And I tried to stay away from it because we were often in a van driving through India. Here was 3 Jews being driven through India by a Muslim. Pretty fascinating. Now, most of 15% of India is Muslim. And Akbar was great. He was a great guy. We had a great time. It was wonderful. But I'd sit in the back reading a book, had my headphones on. My aunt would be chattering with my wife. My wife would tell me about some of the great things that she would tell her, like our Constitution is antiquated. I guess she got that from RPG. You know who RPG is, right? No. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So, when we went on safari, she couldn't help but telling everybody in the area how man had killed off all these animals and it was so horrible. Now, I think it's disgusting that somebody, I've gone on safari the last 2 years, South Africa and India. I think it's disgusting that anybody would kill an elephant for the tusk. I think it's ridiculous. But I'm not telling everybody in the world that I'm walking by, it's like a badge of honor that she has to wear. So many times during this trip, I was like, when you drive through India, India is fascinating. We were in this city, particularly, and we were with our safari guide, driving down what would be considered a major thoroughfare. There's no traffic signals. There's no traffic signs. And I said to him, why don't you have any traffic signs or anything? He says, we only have that in big cities. And I said, how many people live here? He said, 5 million. So at times I really thought while we were driving through this, when you're driving through India, there's people driving, first of all, there's a lot of people on scooters. Bigger cities, they might have helmets on. Most of the time they don't. There might be 3 people on these scooters. A father, a kid wedged in between a mother in traditional dress riding side saddle on a scooter. I mean, this could drive a liberal crazy. No, you can't do that. Yeah, we're in a van, but we're driving behind an oxen-driven cart, or a camel-driven cart. It's just fascinating, all this melding, and they all seem happy. They're all fine. They know what their life was. Yeah, it's obvious that there's some poverty here, but nobody seems like this is horrible. And I really thought at some time that my aunt was going to just stop, yell at Akbar, stop the car, I gotta get out. No, and go talk to these people. No, you can't do this. You can't live like this. You've got to come to the United States. We'll give you a 2-bedroom apartment. We'll give you a 2-bedroom with 2 baths. You've got to come here. You got to live like, you can't live like this. Well, give me a place with a color TV and a microwave and a dishwasher. You can't live like this. And I really thought, except for the fact that she was probably scared she might get hurt by somebody, I really thought she was going to do this. Fortunately, she didn't. But that is their attitude, I believe, a emblematic of their attitude of the difference between how they think about this thing. And this is why they think that it's okay for all these people to come to the United States, whether they're legal or not. Now, if you may have noticed the rhetoric, there is no more discussion, there's no more commentary from the left about illegal immigration. It's only immigration. There is no segregation. I don't believe, there may be some people in this room who want a restriction on legal immigration. Is there anybody who wants a restriction on legal immigration?
Actually, yes.
But you don't want to cut off immigration. Your problem is with illegal immigration. Now, I had experiences, and this was predicated by another travel experience. This was back like I think it was in 2006. I went to Argentina, and I'm in Buenos Aires. And if anybody's ever been to Buenos Aires, it's one of the great cities of the world. You can transplant Buenos Aires, and you would think it's in France, like Paris. It's a beautiful city. It's sophisticated, etc. So I'm walking around this. They have the widest boulevard in the world. And I'm walking around this city. It's just wonderful. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this country had a coup d'etat like 10 years ago. And how could that happen in a country that seems to be so sophisticated? And the reasoning is, in my mind, is they don't understand what we understand. What is the one thing that makes the United States and civilized countries like Britain and Australia different? It's the rule of law.
Yes.
So all these people come here from these countries with failed governments, and then the first thing we say to them is, it's okay you came here illegally, we'll keep you here. Don't worry about that law, but follow the rest of the laws. I personally believe there's a little bit of incongruity there,
yes.
And there's a problem for presentation of these people as to how they're going to operate. Now, we know that they all came, that most of them come in here to find work. Okay, fine, absolutely. Some of them are getting handouts. We know that. The entrenched government doesn't want to admit that. They want to make a better life. Where are you going to get a better life? Here or in Guatemala? Let's be serious. We all know that. But the fact is that we hear that story all the time. But what about the legal process? What about the same person in Thailand who can't just hop on the top of a train and travel up 800 miles illegally into the United States because they have to somehow get across a major ocean to get here? They have the same interest in being here and the same improving a lot of themselves and their family. I think their discussion regarding the issue of immigration is so detached from where we're at, and we've just segregated from where they're heading in such a big way that it's really, I don't know how we're going to get back to having what we should have is a new immigration bill, which we need to have passed in the next couple of years after we pass the other bills we need to pass. And obviously, this is not to just throw red meat at you. We need to put up the wall.
Yes.
I'm a Bushy. I was appointed by George W. Bush to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Council, very supportive of him. When he came out with the comprehensive immigration plan, I initially supported it. I was then convinced because I actually listen to other people's arguments. You know, that's kind of a novel thing these days. That I was wrong about one thing. We shouldn't do anything about immigration until we fix the enforcement. Why? Because what most Republicans would perceive as the greatest president of the 20th century, Ronald Reagan, screwed this up.
Yes, he
Ronald
did.
Reagan passed a bill in 1986 with the help of other individuals, and he signed it, but we were promised enforcement after that, nothing was done. So the Republicans in this country are never going to go for immigration reform without enforcement. And not just the wall. It's not just the wall that's the issue. It's the overstays of visas.
Yes.
We should stop focusing on giving them the opportunity to say we're focusing on brown people. It's also people from Denmark who are here illegally,
Yes.
stay here, meld in, or Canada. The thousands of Canadians here. Love them. Who doesn't love them? Who doesn't love the Danish? But if you were in Switzerland and you overstayed your visa, they'd come into your hotel and kick you out. And why we don't do anything about that, why we don't improve our system, and that's what we need to do before we start dealing with all the other issues, the H-1B visas, etc.
Absolutely. Wow, music to my ears.
There's another issue in the immigration. How many of you have ever seen on the internet the gumball guy?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
All right, so a few of you have, okay? If you haven't seen the gumball guy, go on YouTube when you get home tonight. If you're looking at your phone, put it down right now. You're not going to look at the gumball guy now. You're going to look at him when you get home, all right? But I watched Gumball Guy 2 or 3 times. This is 7 minutes that every American should watch. And what it says is not 2 things. I'm going to summarize what comes out of it, and you can make your own summary after you watch it. 1, we have taken 1 million people who we want to help, who are not have the same opportunities in the United States. We're not going to cure the ills of the world, because another 5 million people are born into these countries, and they don't. We can do this forever. And he shows this with gumballs. And so it gets such a graphic design of it. The other thing that I thought was fascinating, that I personally hadn't thought about that much, was the fact that who do we want to take from these countries? We want to take their best and their brightest. And he points out, every time we keep on taking the best and the brightest, what happens to these countries? They don't have the best and the brightest to help run their country. They don't have the doctors. You go to Los Angeles, and there's a large contingent of Indian doctors. And they're not in India. The Indian people aren't getting the benefit of these great doctors. At Cedars-Sinai, one of the premier hospitals in the world, one of the premier hospitals on the West Coast, if you have a heart surgery, the surgeons are all Indians. It's called the Indian Mafia. Right? So we want to take in the best from Thailand. We want to take, and we talk about this. We openly talk about this. But we don't consider, is there harm to these countries from doing that? Is there harm to them because of the fact that they're not there to go back, start businesses, hire people, and those are the kind of people that they need. So
that's a really good point.
I highly suggest you watch the Gumball Guy. Nothing better than that to define our immigration situation. I did bring up with my aunt one thing. I said to her when there's some kind of flow of conversation, I said to her, the Democratic Party will never get anywhere in this country until they stop making abortion their end and be all issue. They have to understand that it's not the raison d'etre of their party, that there's other issues in the United States that are extremely important. Now, I have defined myself in what I believe on this issue. Interestingly, that happened in 2000. I wrote a column that was published by the Los Angeles Times The only article they've ever published of mine, because I was not part of the perceived mantra of the Republican Party. And what I said was, I'm a pro-choice Republican. But I don't believe in three things. One, there should be no federal funding, no public funding of abortions. I think this is the most serious issue that caused the Democrats to have problems with abortion. They just think they have something that they believe in, well, the government should pay for it. We believe if we have something we believe in, let's take up a collection and start a charity and get it taken care of. Two, parental notice. It's a joke that, I've had people tell me this. My daughter's now over 18, but to tell a parent that because of this one procedure, a 15-year-old can be taken out of your hands for a medical procedure, and the government can tell you that she can have it. There's no segregation. And third, absolutely no late-term abortions. If you can't decide in the first trimester you're going to have an abortion, please, you don't realize that you're a fully formed child at some point there, 4, 5, 6 months around. We're birthing these children, we're putting them in incubators. It's ridiculous. But I think the Republicans make a serious mistake about what we argue about. And that is about Planned Parenthood. We go about arguing about Planned Parenthood in the wrong way. This is how we should be arguing about them. They're failures. They are called Planned Parenthood. That means we're planning for parenthood. That's what they name themselves. They've been around for 100 years. They had 325,000 abortions in the year 2015. That was 14% of the people who walked into their place. That's a pretty high failure rate. They are doing a very good job of advising people on what they should do about planning for parenthood. If 14% of their people are having abortions, they're not really guiding people. And you can't tell me that it's that difficult. We dealt with that issue on a national basis because a few years back, most of you probably remember Sandra Fluke. The Sally Yates of her day, the woman who got 15 minutes of fame for her wonderful